Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to stage number 1 of the Tour de Boudica. We have 3 days of racing, stage 1, 2, and 3 in the world of Zwift. This is a women's racing stage tour that is happening all weekend long. I'm Nathan Guerra Anna Russel. Next to me for this Tour de Boudica for slot number 1, time slot number 1. Time slot number 2 will be later today / tonight. And Katie will be taking my spot alongside of Anna. I'm super excited, though, for the Tour de Boudica. We're out on the Tempest Fugit today for an individual time trial. And we will be using the individual time trial mode out here. So each of the racers are actually going to be setting off on their own with their own time slots and timed in the world of Zwift. There's a 2.4 kilometer median, 1.5 miles, and a total distance of 19.7 kilometers, 11.9 miles. So fast and furious here, Anna. I think this racing is going to be over pretty quick, but I think it's an all-out effort today.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of start these commentary gigs wishing I was out racing, but I've got to say today, I'm not sure I want to be out there racing. It's going to be a brutal, 25 minutes. Looking at the start lines now, I mean, there's over 400 people racing today. There's over 100 people racing this afternoon. So it's an amazing event put on here by the Warrior Games, and super impressed with what they've done with women's racing in Zwift. Just absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm excited. I'm excited for the whole weekend. I'm going to, take over for this slot 1, but I'm excited just to hang out and watch. This is my first time going to be able to just hang out and cheer people on. So, and it's all of the who's who across all of the categories. It's something really cool that's been going on with the Warrior Games is the focus across all the categories. Very much a community event and pushing everybody to the max, it looks like, all weekend long. We do have a little video actually put together by the Warrior Games for stage 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
The Warrior Games presents to you the Tour De Boudica 2.0. If you were involved in the first Tour De Boudica, you will know that we have a fun-filled weekend of racing in store for you. However, Tour De Boudica 2.0 has some twists. We have an individual general classification, a team classification, and time deduction bonuses. This weekend, all categories will race exactly the same routes and distances with a time trial, a sprint race, and a queen stage. Kicking off this evening, we have the individual time trial. This will be 1 lap of Tempest Fugit. The total course distance is 19.2 kilometers or 11.9 miles. This includes a 2.4 kilometer or 1.5 mile lead-in. Our riders will fly through the desert. This will be fast and furious, and they must watch out for those false flats. First, they will pass the cliff dwellings near the first turnaround loop, and then hit the forward sprint segment. They will ride through the old desert flats, through a gap in the rocks to a hidden oasis, complete with a waterfall and dinosaur fossils. They will continue on and ride into Saddle Springs, where they will make a turnaround before heading back. Just after the turnaround, they will cross the start line of the 7 km Fugo Flats reverse segment. This ends at the same rock arch where the forward sprint ends. They will ride through the arch and to the first turnaround loop, then finish the route with a second effort on that sprint segment. Queen Bee of Stage 1 will be the fastest rider in each category. General classification after Stage 1. The individual general classification will be the rider's time from Stage 1. The team general classification will be the cumulative time of the 2 best placed riders in the team from Stage 1.
Well, pretty amazing production put together. I'm loving what the Warrior Games are doing in support of all the broadcasting, and obviously put a lot of time and effort. I'm looking at all of the stages across, and they've got some pretty cool, it seems like, points racing with Seaside Sprint going on tomorrow, as well as on the Queen stage over on Casse Pat. So they've really put together a very cool, each day has its focus, it seems like, that can really bring something out of each one of the teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, talking, I raced for Sarah Sapro's Closet, and I had a look at the stages and talked to them about strategy. I mean, they have to race well today. It's the top 2 riders from the team that will do the team GC time today. But also for your individual GC, if you have a bad time trial today, that just sets up the weekend very poorly. If you have a great one, then all you've got to do is defend your position. So today, it really does all come down to that personal performance. And I think this is where you'll see sort of the cream of the crop, because you can't really use any of the Zwift gamification. It's just purely looking at your raw power of what you can hold for that 24, 25-ish kilometers. And it's going to be extremely hard. I've seen some recce's going on, and people are pretty nervous about today.
Yeah, I bet. And I think we're going to take a look at exactly who they need to be nervous about. I think they're also a little nervous coming to the start line right now as they have the little tick down going. Some of the riders are out on course already, but as they get the little countdown timer happening here, it's going to be, the hearts are going to start pumping. I haven't seen some.
I'm nervous just watching it. I'm nervous sitting here looking at it.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Shall we have a look at
so
the...
Let's take a look at who are the riders to watch. Yeah, riders to watch here. So it does look like here's the A+ and A's. Kristen Kolchinski, the new pickup over on 2020 for season 1 of the ZRL, is out there, as well as Kate Robinson there for Socks for Watts. It's going to be Catherine Curry. We know that name from CSU I Race Like a Girl. Liz Ellis Shoop from CSU I Race Like a Girl as well. Hegstrom there, Myland from Swedish Zwifters. Helen Talbot there from Socks for Watts. Helen McKay from Turbo. Sony coming in from Betty Squad. And the new pickup for Stars the Pros Closet there, brought over from Vision. Now on Stars the Pros Closet, that's going to be Jackie Godby. And that's your A+ and A riders to watch here in the Tour de Boudica.
And looking at your B riders here, Laura Lawson from AO, Molly Van Houweling from Dutch Diesel Cycling, Sylvia Holmsen from Draft, Helen Talbot from Socks for Watts, and Alison Thompson from Cryogen.
In the C category, it's going to be Tanya Eplin there coming from the Vixen team. Kristen Culver, a long-time rider for the Revo team there. Also be watch out for her in the C category. Jenny Asplund, another familiar name for the Swedish Zwifters SCR there. She's going to be hammering away in the C's as well. Vensko from the Betty Squad, and then Karen Vanderak there from BRT, that Bolt Racing team. Be on the watch out for those riders in the C's.
And in the D's, Ness Hilden from AO, Molly Kreit from Revo, Puck Linda Ingstrom from Swedish Zwifters, Heather Kovacs from Vixen, and Ann-Katrin Pedersen from Vikings.
Yeah, that's a lot of the top talent there from each one of the teams. But I think there's also an opportunity for some other teams that are going to be able to get on the radar now through this event throughout the weekend here. There's been a lot of new teams showing up on the scene as well over the last couple of weeks, specifically coming out of ZRL Season 1. I think that looking into Season 2, this is almost a kickstart now, it seems, into that as well. So I think be on the lookout, and I think we're definitely going to be putting new riders and new teams on that radar. So I do believe we have got riders out on course perhaps here.
We do have riders out on course. We'll head out and have a look at what's happening. So it is an individual time trial. People started off at around 30-second gaps. So we're going to see a lot of riders out on course, and you can't actually draft. So there are non-drafting, even though a few of them are grouped together. So we'll go and check out what's happening here. And we're following some of the A category riders here. They're all actually sort of in mixed up pens here. So they've all started at different times, and we'll make our way near the front and see if we can see some of those riders to watch that we talked about previously.
Yeah, and one thing just to, this is an individual time trial, and it does not have necessarily the information that we might need in order to get the times in live. So we're going to go ahead and make sure to follow along over on Zwift Power for some of the live results over there as the riders head out. We'll start being able to get some times as they do come in over there. But just so everybody knows, that is the reason why, as you look at the top of the screen, we will have the approaching start line, is that is based off of the avatar that we have in the game. We do have A Race Like a Girl here. It looks like it's going to be Catherine Curry, I believe.
No, it's actually Meredith Kessler.
Kilogram.
Yeah, Meredith Kessler, and I just did want to highlight her. I used to race with Meredith back in the day when I raced triathlon. She still races professionally in Ironman distance triathlons, but because of the lockdowns, she's really taken to Zwift racing like a duck to water. And I just wanted to highlight her because her bike skills, I've been out there, I've ridden with her along the Queen K. She is an absolute animal on the time trial bike. And I think, as you can see there from her numbers, 4.5, 4.7 watts per kg, and she's just breezing past the field.
Absolutely flying there, and you do see a little bit of the difference there in the ability in the watts per kilogram as you come on flying by there. It's solid, probably I would think pushing 47, 48 kilometers per hour at this point as she takes on this course. I think this is going to be an all-out effort here for Kessler. I mean, 5.0, that upper level. I wonder if she's going to be able to maintain all the way through here. What is the threshold of this rider? So probably going to give us a little bit of help on that. 4.7, 4.8. I think she's going to settle in most likely right around that 4.8 watts per kilogram for the duration as she heads into the little aces here. This is a little uphill gradient. Probably one of the sections you could grab a little bit of extra time. It's kind of always that thin line. And I think where you hit this section of this course and you could gain time, but how much are you risking when it comes to a VO2 effort over the top here, right? You push it a little bit too far over that threshold. You know, if she were to try and gain some time here, it looks like she's doing almost the opposite, tempering herself, bringing it back to 4.5, 4.6, rather than trying to find a little extra speed through this section.
Yeah, I was thinking myself how I'd approach this type of race. I think the biggest mistake people could make is because you sit in that pen and like we talked about, you see that time down happening. Your nerves and your heart rate just start to go through the roof. And when you finally go, I think and we can see here, you know, Meredith's dropping just there to around 4.2. I think people are going to just scream out of the pens. And then even though it's a pretty short race, just find that last sort of 10 minutes of the race extremely hard. And that's where someone who's perhaps paced the effort a little bit better will have a better performance.
Yeah, and now we see her starting to ramp things up a little bit here. This little bit of a downhill that you're looking at on this Oasis here. Down to 4.3 watts per kilogram, as you can see. Now we're going to jump in with one of the Aeonian riders from the B category.
Oh, sorry. I'll just flick through and see if we can see some of our riders to watch who we have been watching at the beginning of this show. So we'll just see if I've seen a few of them just pop up on screen. We do have 2 going at the moment, so I can head over and have a look at what's happening with some of our C category riders. But the E pen here, for those familiar with Zwift, usually that's the sort of women's only pen, but for this tour, the whole tour is women's only. So the E pen is actually the A plus riders. So those are the cream of the crop riders, you'd have to say.
Yeah, IMO, it looks like here from the Vikings team. It's going to be the Norwegian team. Ingrid for the Vikings, currently putting out 4.1 watts per kilogram for the duration so far with a 223 back now, according to the live over on Zwift Power, it looks like. Trying to chase down one of the stars. Is that going to be a Stars to Pros closet just ahead of her a little bit there? In the...
oh, that does look like one. That
a little ways ahead.
Let's try and catch
Welter?
them.
Is there a Welter on the team?
Yeah, so that's Jasmine Welter. Self-confessed, she has said time trialing is not really her strength. So this would be not the type of start to a 3-stage race that she would enjoy. She's a very good sprinter, and I know that tomorrow when they hit that sprint stage, that will be where her part on the team really takes the forefront. She's a sort of an 11, 12 watt per kg sprinter, so very, very strong over that 15 seconds, but does not like this format, although she seems to be doing okay, and she's definitely got the setup there. I love that aero helmet I found out actually gives you about a 4% benefit in drafting on Zwift, so for something like this it could be worth using it.
That's been one of the discussions actually in the chat many times, wondering whether or not that aero helmet pulls anything off here, and it looks like it does just that. That is a great setup there. Just on the 808s rather than the 858s, if you didn't know, the difference in the zips there do matter. There's a little bit of a difference between them, as the 858s are a little bit faster if you can earn them out on Zwift there. Now she does pull a solid 617 watts for 15 seconds. Welter does at 11.33 watts per kilogram. Today, most likely going to be more about getting through the individual time trial and showing up for the team tomorrow, I would think, on the Seaside Sprint, where there's a lot of points up for grabs. Currently, so far, she has averaged 3.7 watts per kilogram, though, at 207 watts for the duration, normalized power 212. Solid sprinter, though. at 58, 56 kilograms. So I mean that is a very good kick she must have for that kind of watts per kilogram.
Yeah, and I do just want to, I have pulled up on the other screen, we've got eyes on Kristen Kulczynski, who has just raced recently in the first UCI Esport World Championships, and a pretty amazing rider on Zwift, has really improved her game over the last year, I would say. She's a formidable opponent, and be interested to just see what kind of numbers she has going on at the moment.
Yeah, 5.4 watts per kilogram so far on average at a 267. Maybe overcooking. We'll have to wait and see. Her personal best up at 20 minutes, a 265. So she most likely can handle this. Well, we'll see. I mean, what's the total time on? Do you think on average, if for the E category, this top category, to get across that total distance, it's going to be, for a full 30 minutes or so. Are we going?
I'm going to go maybe
ETA
even
26
25.
is what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 25, 26. So she is overcooking a little bit unless she's going to be setting a new FTP out. Well, not FTP fully, but a new 20-minute best. Now, I did chat with Kristen earlier this week, and she did do a Alp to Zwift personal best recently. So we'll have to wait and see if perhaps that's going to pay off with some fitness games coming out of season 1 in the ZRL here, as the new pickup in this last year for the 2024 team that just had the rebranding. So coming in strong and looking forward to a lot of racing actually for some of these teams. They're going to be doing a full weekend, stage 1, 2, and 3 of the Tour de Boudica, and then it's a warm-up for the reality of CRL Season 2 start on Monday. So this is the kickoff here for a lot of these top riders.
Yeah, and I mean, these stage race formats, they're super fun. It's really great for team building because you're sort of spending the whole weekend together essentially, but you can't underestimate the impact of an effort that's gone too hard today on what could happen tomorrow in the sprint. So, I said at the top of the show that you really have to put everything into today, but it's sort of a fine balance, because you don't want to put so much in that, like you said, she's setting a new FTP, because then tomorrow, how much is that going to take out of the legs for what is quite an important sprint stage day? We'll see what happens tomorrow, but it does have time bonuses, and you do want to be going for those intermediary sprints tomorrow, and you will need power in the legs to do that. So looking at Kristen Kulczynski here, I mean, she's riding around that 5.1 still. I mean, this is some extremely strong riding, but I do think that she's on that favourite list for a reason, right? And I think she could quite easily become this queen of the Tour de Boudica after a performance like this today.
Yeah, I think today and then perhaps Sunday might be the focus for Kulczynski. I think the sprint stage may be going to be left up to a couple of the other teammates from 2024. She definitely is more of either a climber or an FTP full-on effort, rather than the sprinter type situation. She may be leaving more of a team player tomorrow, I would think, on the sprint stages. Not quite as much of a kick from this rider in those situations, but we have seen her sprint in a few races in the past, actually, up against some of the top sprinters, I think, once in a while. But I don't think that's going to be the focus tomorrow. Maybe saving some things for this rider on Sunday, as well as the first race into the ZRL. But, yeah, Kulczynski, solid still, 4.6 now, backing off just a little bit, as we can see. See if we can get some new metrics here. Now it's only backed off to a 5.3 watts per kilometer at this point. 263 looks like on average at 7.6 in total. So still hammering away here. 5.2 again is her personal best for 20, and it's going to be over a 20-minute effort. So I do believe it, unless she is setting a new personal best for 20, we are going to continue to see that back off little by little. And she looks like she went out, hooked it a little bit, maybe backing off a little and then re-upping later on. A lot of times you find out kind of where you stand after that initial 5 to 10 minutes in a TT like this, and then as you readjust, a lot of times the second wind does come on through, Anna.
Yeah, I mean, you get close to the line, 25 minutes, by the time you're really hurting, you should be able to hold on for that last 5 minutes. It's not the type of race. It's not when you get around that 30K, that's where everything and the whole wheels can fall off and you're just really struggling in that last part. But yeah, I think they should be good for this amount of time, although I'm just going to be intrigued to see these race results coming in, because I think who else is out there that could be going really well? I mean, I haven't had eyes yet on Jackie Godby, but I've got to say that from a triathlon background, you've got to favour those triathletes out there today. I did just want to pull up
really
as
good
well. Point. Yeah, I just wanted to pull up as well some of our C category riders who are also out there. And what I'm noticing, I'm just looking at that with the C cats, is they're definitely sort of clustering around each other a little more. And I'm wondering if the sort of strategy you can see with some of these riders is they're using each other for a bit of pacing effort. You know, some of the categories further down maybe haven't done a whole lot of time trials, maybe haven't done a whole lot of those sort of A category stage races, and seem to be using those around them. There's definitely a lot more clustering in that C and B groups as we're watching a Cycloholics rider here. I haven't heard of that team. Have you heard of Cycloholics?
Well, I do know of CCNS. CCNS is a team that's been around for a little while. I believe that was the team that had the Mighty Ducks in ZRL Season 1, but it looks like Cycloholics are a part of that team. A little bit about them is it's the charlescoaching.com, and it's going to be, we know how to fun and rewarding it can be to race and train as part of a well-organized group, they say over on their Zwift Power profile. The goal of Team CCNS is to give athletes opportunity to race and gain experience. You can check out anything you want to about them over at that charlescoaching.com, actually. So they've had a lot of fun, that's for sure. We've noticed a lot of cool names coming on through, and that's almost been a new competition that's came out of ZRL Season 1, actually, has been how well can the naming of the teams go. So as we do have, this is going to be, is that going to be B for CCNS? One thing I am seeing here, when you do get some comparisons across the times as well as the average powers, I do believe that that's going to give us a good idea of how these riders are doing up against each other until we do get some results across the line. It's going to be a solid 3.1 or so, though, here coming from. And that's going to be the upper end, as we do see this rider 3.3 now on average. So interesting enough to see, as this rider is having a pretty good ride, catching a few of the bees and trying to hold on at this point. It's always kind of fun. Now, there is no drafting in game with this individual time trial, but the pacing definitely helps, I would think, Anna, and gives you an idea of how well you're doing.
Yeah, and you want to be around people. It's like, I mean, I've done a lot of time trialing in my day. That's kind of what you do in long course triathlon. And even though you can't draft in triathlon, you want to be around people, at least to pace off them. Because as you can see, these C riders are clustered together because they know, like, if I get dropped here, that's my competition going up the road. So it adds that little extra bit of motivation, even though they can't draft, just staying there, you know, on the wheel of that rider, even though they may actually, you know, they're not getting a benefit, is a psychological benefit for sure.
Yeah, now taking a look at the top of the, real quickly, I'm going to take a look at the top of the leaderboard right now on average power. And we were talking a little bit about who might be watch out for the sprints tomorrow, as well as who is showing up on the day. There's been this battle going on at the top end of the rankings for the Zwift Power rankings, actually, for individual riders. And V Win and Kristen Kolchinski have been going head-to-head on that leaderboard. The win at this point, 5.4 watts per kilogram average, 266 across. The only one beating her currently is going to be Antonina Reznikov at 5.5 watts per kilogram, the monster triathlete coming out of Israel, riding for 2024 currently. Catherine Curry, 5.3. Rachel Lieberman, a new pickup for 2024 there at 5.3 watts per kilogram. So 2024, they're currently in the top 5 for the average wattage, which is going to give us a good idea of where things stand right now, as we don't have the timing at the top, obviously. It's a pretty big jump down from there on the averages to 5.0 and less for anybody behind them.
Yeah, and I have actually got eyes now on Christy Tracy, who I would anticipate herself and Jackie Godby will be the top 2 riders in Saris the Pros Closet, and the top 2 riders are the ones who will carry those GC team points through until tomorrow. And I just want to have a little, you know, chat about her setup here. I haven't seen many people riding this bike. It looks like Cervelo, you know, I know that's very fast in real life. She's got the full aero setup there and the aero helmet helmet. She's taking this extremely seriously. But looking at those watts per kg, 4.4, it was compared to Kristen Kolczynski's sort of 5.1. But I know that Christy has a stronger raw power. So potentially she could actually be still riding a little bit faster. But I mean, Christy Tracy is a phenomenal time trialist. I race with her myself, and she does these unbelievably crazy races that are like 24 hours of just time trialing. So 25 kilometers for her, definitely at the shorter end of what she would prefer. I think she'd prefer everyone to be out there time trialing 100 miles.
Yeah, Christy Tracy, it's a great shout out there actually to the reality of raw wattage in a TT situation versus, the watts per kilogram. On the raw wattage, Christy Tracy actually at this point, I believe, is going to have a pretty solid lead actually over a lot of these riders. I'm looking at her. Tammy Miller, I think at 318 is the only one. Perhaps it's a little bit higher there, but Christy Tracy, from what I saw, about 300 and a little over 300 watts actually on average so far. So she may actually be able to make that up. Now, the difference there being 4.7 watts per kilogram. Now down to 299 as we get an update over on Zip Power. So interesting to see. Antonina Reznikov continuing on, though, at 5.5 watts per kilogram. I think she's going to be the one to watch out for today, who's trying to take this down. Win, though, and that is with the thing that Reznikov shows up with is an average high power and the watts per kilogram, right? It's like if you see a situation, I'm a little bit more familiar with the men's side. You got a reality of in real life racing. Tony Martin, showing up, large rider. If he were to show up, his watts per kilogram might not be anywhere near to a GC contender, right? Somebody that may be like what we were talking about earlier, Kristen Kolczynski type situation, where a rider who could just climb mountains like crazy, amazing power to weight ratio. But he's going to show up and just put out huge raw power and whoop everybody in this discipline, right? Similar situation that I would think we would see from a rider that you were talking about, like Christy Tracy here, where maybe the watts per kilogram we see in the lower right-hand corner aren't really that impressive compared to some of the other riders that we've seen out here, but her raw power is what's going to get her across the line maybe on that podium.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a mistake people make when they just stare at watts per kg, and this is a lesson I've learned from the team time trials. It really becomes the thing you've got to watch is your speed. Like your speed in your time trial is absolute king. Looking at how fast you can go and keeping that momentum high. I think people get a bit mixed up in watching those watts, especially if they're looking at riders around them and they're thinking, man, my watts per kg are like way higher and I'm not even catching them. The only time you're going to be able to do that on this course is when you're hitting those slight uphills. The lighter riders will have a benefit, but really not much. It only goes up to like 2-3% for a very short period of time. So I think, knowing Christy myself, she will have prepared very well for this, and she will have known exactly her pace goals to set what time. She's very methodical. No doubt it'll be in a spreadsheet, and I'm sure if you want to see her pain face, she usually live streams her racing. So you can check that out while you're watching this and see the pain behind the avatar. But this individual time trial is definitely going to separate the cream from the crop, I think, because those who have done their homework, those, they know their bike setup, but they also know their pacing and how far and fast they can push for this period of time will come out on top on the day. And, it'd be good to see the likes of Kristen Kolczynski at the end if she did go out a little fast or if she's managed to hold on to that, because I know with Christy, those watts are sort of barely moving. She's set that target and she's just holding on to it for dear life.
Yeah, it looks like 4.3 now, 4.4, pretty consistent here. With all the riders, we have seen things where they've faded just a little bit. I do have Kolczynski on screen in front of me here. I saw for a moment there, pushing up into 5.7, 5.8 watts per kilogram. Now coming even stronger on as she gets into the back end of this course, actually. On the upper right-hand corner, not on the right-hand corner, but on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the map, that new map that is a part of the TT mode specifically. If you've climbed the Alp, you'll be familiar with it. That Zwift does swap into a different map mode, and you can see where the finish line is for this rider. You can also see the other riders that are ahead for the rider as well. This rider will be able to see what the time to go, the distance to go, all of the information above them will be filled in actually. So we'll see how this ends up for this rider here. But Christy Tracy looks like the average is going to be right around that 4.7294, now fading just a little bit. A rider, Catherine Curry now, 5.4 watts per kilogram, taking over the she has just finished across the finish line actually, Catherine Curry, a 25:41 is what I'm seeing from Catherine Curry actually for a time.
Oh, that is extremely impressive. That's quicker than I thought people would be going today. And that's, for those who don't know Catherine Curry, I mean, I'm not sure how you wouldn't know her. She's a former professional road racer, retired in 2010, rode for a professional team for the majority of her career, was on the US national team. In 2005, was a women's national champion. So huge palmares for Catherine Curry. She got into Zwift racing in 2020 after having some injuries and she couldn't go out on the road anymore. So again, she's using that trainer to her advantage and she is absolutely dominating today. That is a very, very impressive performance.
Huge performance there. Now, the only thing that I'm going to qualify that number that I threw out there is just in case ZP is not used to or doesn't get the information that of the finishing time, that they actually get the finishing time with the gaps between each. I'll have to double check that, but she is one of the first to finish here. So, and I am seeing the times they do seem to be coming in a correct order. So we'll have to wait and see how that ends up playing out. Now, as riders do cross here, we may have the images jump around a little bit for us, just so everybody knows. We'll get back in with the racers as quickly as we possibly can, as it is a new mode for us as we do. Test out broadcasting this specific type of race. It's a whole new ball game when it comes to putting this out for the images out there for the individual time trial. But run a little bit differently, obviously, than we see with the team time trial. With the team time trial, there is no mode for it in game, and so that's why you have everybody with different start times given to them and waiting after the banner drops and all tracked outside the game. Whereas this is actually a mode in the game that everybody gets their start times given to them, and then they roll on out. 4.6 watts per kilogram consistently here with Christy Tracy, probably one of the stronger riders here for the Stars to Pros Closet out there today. I am seeing Win coming on through with a 25:37 according to Zwift Power. I'm going to be careful with those again. I want to qualify that, but that is the time I am seeing come on through as we wait for things to get updated.
And let's have a look at some of the other riders who are out on course now. So we have a rider here from the Aero Flyers, I do believe, O'Connell here. And just double check that is her. Yeah, so O'Connell from Aero Flyers. So this is a team that's really come to the forefront over this last year and has been performing very well in the Zwift Racing League Series 1. O'Connell, I have seen her racing a little bit before. I'm not sure on her particular strengths here, but looking at these time trial numbers, she seems to be doing very well in riding through the field. You can see she actually just came through the finish line there, so that's a very quick time from her, and people are, as you can see at the finish there, absolutely motoring through. So some have finished and some haven't, and it's a big melee of people at the end of that race. So we'll see if we can head back and actually get back into the pure riding here, as we see Christy Tracy has just rolled through the finish line as well, and we'll try and get back and see if we can follow some of the other C and D cat riders as they're coming through the last parts of this course.
Yeah, and quickly here, the Vesna O'Connell actually riding for that Aero team. That's a good shout out for that new Aero team that has been launched out of Australia. She was a part of the Zwift Racing League in APAC Division 1, I believe, riding for that Aero Flyer. So this is one of that top teams that was coming out of the APAC Division. So level 19 Zwifter, has a good sprint. Probably tomorrow that will be her focus. Vesna, I think, at 10.17 watts, 743 watts actually for her best 15 second. It seems that that's only going to be getting better as we head into the Tour de Boudica here. Now jumping on with the B category, that's going to be Korsvold for the Vikings out of Norway. Long time standing team, the Vikings. Always good to see them out on course. Hanging on to a couple cryogen riders that are pacing her. to the finish line is everybody's going to be finishing up pretty quick here. As they all started right around the same time. There's a little bit of gap between them. Probably the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to get everybody across the line here as they roll into these final efforts. And this, really wanted to speak to doing this justice, Anna. I mean, what is the pain cave looking like right now? What does this feel like coming to the line for this last 30 seconds? This is everything all in.
It's horrible. Like I couldn't underestimate how horrible it will be. It's your legs are screaming, you're breathing out your eyeballs, you just are trying to push that final amount, and you're seeing riders around, so you want to be passing them, so you're definitely pushing beyond your limit. And I would probably prefer an hour time trial over 25, 30 minutes because it is just absolutely unpleasant and uncomfortable the entire time. And it's not like when you're in the game, in the draft, and the sort of the more traditional racing on Zwift. You don't have power-ups, you don't have any of that. You're just you and your own head. And that's where it gets really hard because pretty much from the gun, your head will be saying, please stop.
Yeah. And as we start to get these times in, and we'll get an idea of what all the pain and the suffering produced here for these riders. There's Reznikov. This is one of the riders that we need to be watching out for, whether or not she took down the win out here.
Yeah.
I believe I'm looking at the times that are coming through here, and now I'm not sure how Zwift Power is calculating this and making this happen, but I'm seeing that Reznikov put out the most watts per kilogram. But I'm seeing Rachel Lieberman, perhaps, from 2024 at 5.3 watts per kilogram, but at 25:33 is the time I'm currently seeing from Rachel Lieberman at the top end of the E category. I'm going to wait and see if these results, I gotta make sure, though, that that's how this ends up pulling through on the results. But according to the live results, this is the preliminary check on that. I am seeing Rachel Lieberman at the top, with the win coming through 4 seconds back. Catherine Curry, 8 seconds back there from I Race Like a Girl. Reznikov in 4th. Tammy Miller in 5th place currently. Kristen Kolchinsky currently in 6th place at 5.1 watts per kilogram. Francesca Hall, Lenny Ramsey, and then Christy Tracy coming through a 55-second gap back here, 105 to Nellie Larson. Currently, that is the top 10 that we are seeing over on ZwiftPower.com. Some of the Bs are coming on through as well. The first B that I can see amongst that is going to be Kate Whiteman there coming in for Team Rave.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Rachel Lieberman has taken out the fastest time today. I raced her in one of the most interesting races I've ever done really on Zwift, where she powered away with a couple of her teammates and they basically time trialed away from the entire group. So she's got extremely good power and is extremely good at time trialing. So, preliminary results, but, I wouldn't be surprised if she's taken out the individual time trial stage 1 of the Tour De Boudica today.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons that I believe 2024 did pick up the likes of Rachel Lieberman, was specifically looking forward to that TTT situation or time trial situation, as well as some glue to glue together and chase down those breakaways to make sure that the sprinters and the GC contenders, those who can take down the big climbs, that they can have the support that they need from a rider like Rachel Lieberman. I think that she's going to be a huge asset when it comes to just one of those rulers, those tanks of a team, that she can just show up, put down big watts, big speed, and close things down, as well as make sure that TTT is as fast as it possibly can be. And she's showing us exactly why with this individual time trial right now for Team 2024. And Stage 1 Tour de Boudica here out on the Tempest Fugit.
Yeah, one note about Rachel, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, I'm not sure her sprint is super strong. That's where we managed to beat her a few times, was in those big sprints at the end. So if she's performed well today, she'll be sitting well, obviously, in the individual GC, but tomorrow's the sprint stage, and if I'm looking at wanting to beat her and I'm in some other teams, you've got to just sprint your heart out tomorrow, because that's the only chance you're going to have to drop her. You've got to thin out that pack. Like I said today, there's, over 400 riders out today, over 100 out later in the next individual time trial. So you don't want those big bunches in the sprint tomorrow, because someone like Rachel can just sit in there, drop a few power ups when she needs to, and you're not going to be able to drop her. So I think really important for the other teams to look at who's in that top 5, look at what their strengths and weaknesses are, and exploit them tomorrow.
100%. And this rider, Rachel Lemanich, you're talking about, 9.9 watts per kilogram, 585. It's a full 2 watt per kilogram difference actually on that sprint. So I think you're right. It's not lower end, like a horrible sprint or anything, but definitely when it comes down to coming up against the top sprinters, missing that 200 watts is going to be a big difference at 2 watts per kilogram. Now we are looking at Ann Walker here actually. She's hammering away, solid ride here for Team Vixen, level 30 Zwifter, coming out of the UK for Vixen Fox here, and looks like going to be a solid ride for her as she comes on through. 2.5 watts per kilogram in this D category. We'll start getting some information here slowly about how these riders are finishing up as she just comes across the line. Solid 2.4 watts per kilogram from her on average, and 155. So that is going to put her right on the edge actually of that D category, almost 2.5. So I have a feeling maybe in the top % of the D category for Ann Walker for Vixen.
Yeah, I mean, we're having almost all our riders coming through to finish now. I mean, I knew it was going to be ferocious and fast, but this is, the D riders are just about all finished as well. So we're looking here at La Civita from Rave with Australian teammate just behind her. I do want to say it's always interesting for me to see teammates who are from different countries that speak different languages, because it's something I've seen interestingly played out in the Zwift race league, is how they actually communicate. So obviously you don't need to communicate a lot today, but over the next couple of days you do. And how they talk on Discord, it's quite interesting. I had a chat to one of the teams who had riders from Germany, Japan, and Australia, and they actually didn't really do a lot of talking on Discord. They used the buttons in Zwift. So like an elbow equaled something, a hand up equaled something. And so that was the way they communicated when they didn't all speak the same language. So I think it's really cool how people are sort of mixing it up a bit there and using whatever tools they have to their advantage.
That is really interesting. Really interesting. I like how they're communicating in game that way. The socks are always a tell there as well, I think.
Yeah.
And some of the teams I do know are using socks specifically to know what kind of order that they're supposed to be going in. But now I'm going to just run through here over on Zwift Power. It is a little difficult to get an idea exactly of where things are standing, but from what I can see here currently so far. In that E category, again, everyone's across the line. The top 3, Rachel Lehman, V Win, and then Catherine Curry from what we can see. In just A category, it's going to be Cassie Baldy coming on through for Socks for Watts at 120, back from the top A+. And then Sony from Betty Squad Racing there in the 21st, a little ways back for the A's, as well as Carrie Paul there in Cryo RDT. Now in the B category, I am seeing Kate Whiteman there from Team Rave, followed up by Barry Polat there for SDBC in second place there. And then at a solid over 4 watts per kilogram actually. So really solid ride for those riders. Team Revo, they're being represented by Healy Van Luster for Revo. She's in third place from what we can see. And then Jennifer Comfort for Wadi Inc. Racing. Then we've got Lala Lawson. That's your top 5 in that B category. For the C's, I'm going to go ahead and move through. It is one of the riders we said to watch, actually. Jenny Osborne for the SZ team with a solid
nice.
3.5 watts per kilogram
Ooh,
coming out of the
that's
C
good.
category.
That's fantastic. I'm just actually pulled up here a Fearless rider, one of the D category riders coming through around to finish race. I just wanted to highlight Fearless as well. They had the Women's Team Championships late last year. One of the biggest sort of women's teams on Zwift, have a great Facebook presence and a really solid and supportive team. I've seen a lot of them doing Alp de Zwift sort of trials together. They've also been doing some V-Everesting. I joined up with one of the crews actually who was doing a bit of running, and yeah, they're a super supportive bunch of ladies. Love their kit as well. And we were just watching Boudicca here come around from the D category to finish her individual time trial today. But yeah, just wanted to give a little shout out to Fearless, prominent team on Zwift in the women's space. And you know, if you are watching this and you are teamless and you want to join a team, have a look at all the women's teams out. But Fearless, definitely one of the most supportive that I've seen on Zwift.
Yeah, and it's really great to see level 21 Zwifter, you know, here coming from Jenny and, Jihan Roodbeck out of the Netherlands, you know, and in this D category, she's averaging, it looks like, around that 1.5 watts per kilogram for the duration here. And I think that this really speaks to how this is for everybody. She's playing a role in this team out here. She's going to show up on the day tomorrow, get a time across the line. You know, I think that that is a huge talking point, I think, across the board with Tour De Boudica as we head into this weekend with 3 stages, is how it is so inclusive, you know, for this women's racing scene across the board, and so many new faces as well. I mean, level 21, that's a pretty fresh Zwifter jumping onto a team here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it can be a little bit of a baptism by fire. You know, you've maybe had New Year's roll around, you've set your New Year's resolutions, you've got a new trainer for Christmas, you jump on, suddenly you join a team and they tell you about a 3-day stage race and you think, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then you're out there racing an individual time trial, some of the best in the world. I mean, it's awesome. And I think it'll be super inspiring, you know, hopefully not intimidating. I hope people come on here and are inspired by those around them and come out of this 3-day weekend with a whole lot of inspiration and motivation to keep on Zwifting and keep on racing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's obviously a huge part of what everything we've been doing here at Zwift Community Live and the event organizers that we partner with. So really, really happy to be partnering with the Warrior Games on this. Now, just as a heads up on how these results are going to be working, the results will be announced either later in the day or the next day before the next stage, just so everybody knows. We will not be having live results for these events actually during the broadcast, but be on the lookout from the Warrior Games about as it happens. This is time slot 1. Later today, we're going to try and work on I've got some ideas about how we can get some better live info for you actually throughout the next time slot. The next time slot we'll be having Katie Bates and Anna on that a little later today. Now, as far as this goes, the winner is the fastest rider in each category, but there is individual GC, general classification, which is the rider's time on stage 1 for this stage. But then there's team classification as well, which is the cumulative time of the 2 best placed team riders. So you did have a GC to contend for, to battle it out for the individual. Then the 2 best riders, though, are going to be put together from that team to try and get the best, to try and go for the team classification as well, Anna, which is pretty interesting, Anna.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it because it keeps the motivation high to keep gunning for your team. But also everyone to keep in mind is that even the fastest time today in today's race that we've just covered, there is another race like Nathan said. So there may be faster times that happen in the race, which is in about 4 or 5 hours. So do definitely keep an eye on the Tour De Boudica Facebook page because they'll be updating them based on those 2 races. So it's an interesting one. Most people have raced, about 3/4 of entrants have raced in this one, and I think that's definitely because they want to have the biggest gap between now and tomorrow's race and recover and do all of that good stuff. But there are over 100 riders taken to the start line later today, and we could see, I think, Jackie Godby might be in that one, which has been one of the riders to watch. So it'll be great to see how those times compared up to the Rachel Liebermans and the Christy Tracy's that we saw today.
Yeah, you know, that was actually something I was looking through the live list, and I was like, Jackie, where's Jackie? I'm expecting to see Jackie at the top end. I was like, oh, time slot 2. And that's what's going to make things interesting for later today is we're going to have some data now. You know, that you're going to be able to have an idea. Oh, well, we know what this time is, and we know what this time is. And
that's a good
point. How are they going? And
point.
what are the average watts per kilogram that we saw from the earlier stage that you're going to be able to compare and contrast? And I think some of the teams, you know, that are watching, they're getting a little bit of, you know, they're kind of getting to sit back a little bit like you have in a regular ITT situation where you get a lot of people finishing way before it's your turn to go. And you know that what you get to shoot for. So, Anna, what would be your way to, I mean, would you want to go last or would you want to go first and just set the bar? Like, come and challenge me. Set the bar high, or do you want to wait till later?
I'm always like, it's all about how I race and not compared to my competitors. I'd go first and just absolutely slam it and be like, boom, bring it on, you know? And then you can get in people's heads, you know? You can do your performance, you can chuck it up on Instagram and be like, that was the best race I've ever done. My FTP's gone up, and you're in people's heads, right? So go first, get in people's heads, and then watch with a bag of popcorn in the afternoon.
A couple of DMs? A couple of personal messages like, oh, did you see what I did over here? Oh, check out these numbers. How did you like Sar's Pros Closet there?
Yeah, exactly. I hope people get into that. That'd be awesome. I'd love some little battles going on behind the scenes.
You heard it right here, everybody. All the DMs are going out about how your times went. Because there is I like to sit back, know what I need to shoot for, and then go and shoot for it. But now you do have the advantage. If you had a good race or you feel like a good race, you want to get in somebody's head, you can at least be like, well, look what I did. So put them on the back foot a little bit there. All right, well, that's going to be it for us here in time slot 1, everybody. Thanks a lot. Now, obviously, it was a little bit challenging here with the individual time trial mode, but we have racing all weekend long, and we have another time slot later today. Tomorrow will be a sprint as the sprint course with the Seaside Sprint, and then we're also going to be having the Queen Stage outside on Casse Pots, and that is going to be a lot more climbing and straight-up scratch racing. So be on the watch out for those. Make sure to hit those notification buttons. All those streams, they'll be scheduled actually right after this. They'll be on our Facebook, our YouTube, and of course, we're always going to be live on Periscope / Twitter and Twitch. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Nathan Guerra Anna Russel next to me. Come back for Katie and Anna later tonight in time slot 2 for Tour De Boudica stage 1, as well as the rest of the stages throughout the weekend. As always, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Great job to all the riders, and ride on.